Today, we're giving you the basics to professionalism featuring our beloved guest, Dr. Genna. Woo.
I'm Jen, a career coach and your go-to gal for all things career advice.
And I'm Genna, and hopefully we're going to help some people get their next job.
Welcome to Job Search Stories.
You've got the job.
Ooh, yes.
Now what? Any tips you have for people when they're starting their first day?
Everyone's nervous. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
But let those nerves subside a little bit.
Yeah.
And instead begin to fill them with curiosity and excitement. You know, learning something new, bringing something to the workplace. Ask questions. You know, if you need to know where to park, even before you pull up, ask. You know, working remotely. If you don't know what an appropriate background is for your Zoom, ask.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to ask questions because you feel like you're a novice or you're battling some imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But I got news for you. You are a novice in the workplace, and it's okay to say that and to ask for help.
As a manager, if I have a new hire, I love to send as many resources as possible, but also let them know this is a lot of information and I do not expect you to know any of it right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I tend to give people the first 30 days. You might have done this work in another environment, but if you haven't done it here, sometimes you're learning things all over again.
Yeah.
So giving yourself that space to learn and to ask questions. If you have done it before, just ask them, how is it done here?
Yeah.
Because again, it could be totally different.
One other tip is like you probably, if you were an applicant, you probably competed against multiple people for the position and you were selected. So remember that.
Confidence is key.
Yeah.
You made it.
You're going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose the first 30, 60, 90 days. You're learning names, you're learning people, you're learning places, you're learning all of these things in roles, expectations, company culture. But at the end of the day, take a deep breath and realize that you were selected for a reason.
Are there any like special tips that either of y'all have for specifically remote workers? It is a little different when you're doing like your first day over Zoom.
I think having everything set up, asking what an appropriate background looks like, making sure your tech is all set up before you're supposed to start, arrive early, dress appropriately, be responsive in a virtual setting and even not in a virtual setting. If your boss or someone, any of your teammates send you an email, even if it's like a notice, respond, received, got it, thank you. Right in the first 30, 60, 90 days, you're going to be receiving a lot of those emails. And so be responsive, especially on your first day, because your boss is probably going to check in with you to make sure that you're doing all right and be honest.
Even if it's like, hey, like, I'm running to go get lunch. I'll be right back. Like just letting your manager know what's going on because you can't just walk over to someone's desk and be like, oh, they're not there right now. I'll see when they get back. Being very responsive.
Ooh, I got another tip.
Ooh, I love
Another
your tips.
tip.
Let's hear it.
If you're working remotely and you're not at your desk and you're supposed to be at your desk, you may get away with it a couple of times. But eventually your boss will know that you're not working.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can get found out.
Right? You get found out and you get found out rather quickly. And so when you're working from home, be responsible.
Yeah.
Right? You're earning a paycheck. You're expected to do certain tasks to earn that paycheck. Be responsible.
Yeah.
Show up to work.
Yeah.
If you can't show up to work, call out. But if you're supposed to be there, then be there. It's
Be
your
there.
integrity that's on the line.
Yeah.
Such an important thing.
If you're over Zoom, learn the power of the mute button.
Oh, mute yourself.
Mute. If you're in a team meeting, mute it. Just mute it from the get-go and then unmute when you've
That's
been
right.
addressed.
Yeah,
and then mute it right after.
And turn your camera on. If
Keep your
you're
camera-
in a Zoom meeting and there's everyone else has their camera on, or there's an expectation that the majority of people have their camera on, then you should turn your camera on.
We're all in agreement. We're like the best tips that we have are like just making sure that you are responsible for yourself because that will really show your employer that like, oh, this is somebody who I can continue to give responsibilities to.
And you build trust.
Yeah. I love seeing videos of people getting their first big girl job and they get that first paycheck and everything is right with the world. So I want to know, what did you consider your first big girl job?
So my response is probably going to be very different than what you thought it might be.
Okay.
So I'm going to take it a little different direction. But back in the days, I'm formerly incarcerated. And so when I came back from incarceration, a long time ago now, there was not a lot of work being done like there is now to give people like me with a past criminal conviction access to employment. And so my first big girl job was actually with a temp agency.
Okay.
Because at the time, that was the only place that I could really find work. They weren't doing background checks. And I learned kind of like to figure out what temp agency would hire me. And I worked in the office. I started at 5:30 a.m. I had a rough shift.
Oof.
I did every single thing that was piled on my desk, and I did it with such a grateful heart because I had the opportunity to work.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Right? I took advantage of those crazy hours, and I went to school at night, and I used that opportunity to help build my resume.
Yeah.
I learned tons of professional lessons while I was in that workplace. Sometimes I would go to my car and I would cry because I was the temp, right? And I don't feel like I was treated the same as all the other employees all the time. But nonetheless, those lessons have been so instrumental to who I have become as a professional today.
Beautiful. We love that. But I also love that you like kind of found a way to make it work for you.
Yeah.
So that you could like literally live your dream. Like you were like, I'm going to make it work. I also used to take cry breaks at my first big girl job. Also nap breaks. I would nap in the bathroom.
I think that's something really important for first-time job seekers to learn and to remember is that your first job out of college, out of high school, in high school does not have to be your forever job. But there are so many valuable skills and lessons that you can learn that really do shape how you are as a professional.
Oh my gosh,
and they can be good and bad, right? It could be, okay, you learn what type of environment you want to work in. You learn what type of people you don't want to work with or what type of leadership traits you wouldn't want to exhibit. So there really is a lot of opportunity to learn and shape who you are just with those first job experiences.
Absolutely. I remember they gave me an ergonomical keyboard. It was like one of those ones, and I didn't want to make any waves. And so within a couple of days, I learned how to type on that bad boy.
That's
and
so
I still
funny.
use them, right? And so sometimes I reflect, it's almost 20 years ago. When I'm typing on my ergonomical keyboard, I often remember that moment, that was the keyboard that they gave me. I was so thankful that I had the opportunity to work, that I wasn't going to make any waves. And so I learned, and I learned quickly. And now I have no problem. I've learned to advocate for myself.
Right.
And now members of my team, I don't want them to feel that same way. It's like what you said, you learn who you want to be or what kind of leader you want to be. And so I'm very purposeful and asking my team, do you have the office setup that you need? I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel supported. And, even asking like, what kind of keyboard do you want? Send signals that they're really cared for.
Genna, if you don't already know, Jen and I, we have a pretty good relationship.
I would say most days we do.
Okay.
That was a real honest answer.
That was really honest, but I think that's just us being work besties and besties in real life.
This is true.
Honestly, I'm part of the family.
She is.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's because we've built that relationship. We've socialized a lot outside of work. I've gone to work events. I think first-time workers probably need to know how to do that, especially if you're antisocial. I think I'm like an extroverted introvert. Yeah. So let's give some people some tips. But first, I want to read a Reddit post.
Oh, let's hear it.
This Reddit post is called, Should I Attend Work Social Events? I'm debating whether I'm being short-sighted by not attending work social events, especially as I'm new with a month under my belt on the job. Doesn't help that I'm a socially awkward introvert with anxiety. Same. A part of me knows attending such events can be important, but if I do good work, it shouldn't really matter. So I just need to suck it up and attend while I'm still fairly new. Thoughts?
Ooh, I feel this Reddit post deep in my soul.
Me too.
Except the month part, because I've been at my job for a lot longer than a month, but it still does not make it any easier. But I know it's my job to network is too important not to do.
Yeah.
And so even though I feel uncomfortable sometimes in the moment, I force myself to do it.
Yeah.
And every time I do, good things happen. Good things come from it.
Literally.
I remember when I first started out in my career, I would like accompany my boss to all of these networking events, and I would watch her. And she would introduce me to people, and I watched how she interacted and the things that she talked about. And so it was such a good role model for me.
Something I think really interesting for first-time workers to know is just how important work relationships end up being in your life. So it's actually really interesting. There was a study done by the American Survey Center in 2022 that said that nearly 50% of Americans had said that they had close personal relationships with their coworkers either currently or previously, and that these are relationships that they've maintained throughout their life.
Yeah.
And so it makes a lot of sense when you think about the amount of time we've spent at work. You know, you're there maybe 40 plus hours a week sometimes. You build these close relationships. And so they do become very meaningful.
Yeah.
It is networking, but you also like build strong relationships. And who doesn't want that? New people in their life who also understand what you do. Like, I think it's really interesting trying to explain your job to
ask
your
my
friends.
husband. He still doesn't know what I do.
Exactly.
He still cannot tell you what I do.
At least you have people who you can like vent about work with and like actually get it.
Trauma bond.
Yeah, it's a trauma bond. Ugh, I love a trauma bond. But what about people who like aren't really like partiers or like don't like the activities? Because like sometimes the social activities are things like going to bars or happy hours. Like, what about those people?
So my personal boundary, I've talked a lot about my personal rules that I have for myself, is I don't drink with my coworkers.
Okay.
Right. And so I have no problem going to a bar with my coworkers. And two things. One, not judging them because they choose to drink with each other. That is totally fine. That is their business. No judgment here. And two, getting a cherry Coke and hanging out.
Yeah,
like
get that caffeine.
I have no problem doing either one of those.
Yeah.
No judgment.
Yeah.
If people want to do that, that's their business.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of people make poor choices.
Agreed.
And to me, I have a lot to lose. It has taken me a really, really long time to finally get to where I'm at. And I still have a long way to grow, but I have no room to make any errors or mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I close those opportunities for risk by being very careful and very calculated with what I'm willing to do with my coworkers and what I'm not willing to do. And one more thing I want to add to that, I also think it's okay to shift your rules. Just because today this is who you are doesn't mean that tomorrow you may shift that.
Yeah.
It's okay to say like, today, that's my rule. I'm not going to drink with my coworkers, but maybe in a couple of years from now, that rule may change. I think also like we may have coworkers that are in recovery. And so it's important to be respectful of your coworkers and as they're continuing to work on themselves, especially as a social worker that works in the reentry field. Oftentimes I have peers that are putting their best foot forward and trying to stay sober.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love to be their buddy, their sober buddy when we go to these events because, you know, I'm there in solidarity with them.
There's something about having conversations outside of the office or the work environment that really allow you to share a little bit more about yourself or maybe be a little bit more vulnerable. And that's something that people really gravitate to. So, you know, in addition to learning about common interests, you know, you might find out that your coworkers watch the same shows you do or listen to the same music. Like you really have the opportunity to get to know people as a person and not just a coworker if that's something that you're interested in. And that's really where you build those bonds.
Sure.
I mean, I keep bringing up The Office because all I do is watch The Office, but does anybody remember Jim's barbecue?
Ooh.
He had everybody over. They were talking about work, but at least they had a drink in their hand. At least they had some food.
I feel like every work social event, you start off the evening saying, okay, we're not going to talk about work. And then 30 minutes in, you're all complaining about work.
Yep.
It just never fails.
It happens.
It's like, who's going to be the
time.
first person to bring it up?
Oh,
Exactly. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Job Search Stories. And thank you, Genna, for being here. We loved it.
Thank you so much.
And if you like this episode, make sure to like or subscribe to our channel. And bye.
See you next time.
Especially as I'm... Do I need to just stick it out? Okay. Doesn't help that I'm socially awkward, introvert. Oh, God. Sorry.